So, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Mind Your Own Business. The name is still formulating itself, whether it's going to be Mind Your Own Business or Mind Your Own Black Business. We're still in the early stages of figuring all of this out. My name is Ade Shakoya, but the vision remains the same. The intention of this program, along with the Circulate brand, is to have open, honest discussions around things which we believe are affecting the Black community in regards to our economy, i.e. how do we increase the amount of time that money stays within our communities so that we can create Black economic empowerment. The vision will always remain the same. Every Tuesday at 8 p.m. I'll be here with guests to discuss in an open, honest way. Obviously, that's going to be based on individual perceptions around some of the challenges we're seeing. But the key thing is we don't want to spend time obviously focusing on the challenge. The whole point is to be looking at potential solutions. And like I said, we're still going through the process of figuring this out. But the intention is also to engage you in some of those discussions as well. But without further ado, tonight I'm really honored and blessed to have with me somebody I have a lot of respect for. Go back many years, very close family friend, and we go back many years, but she is a speaker, trainer, and author who specializes in business, entrepreneurship, and leadership. And I'd like to introduce to the show, welcome to the show, Bebe Clement. So hi, Bebe, how you doing?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. You're a serial entrepreneur. I know you also have shows as well where you're supporting many people. But before we get into the crux of things, could I ask you to just quickly take a moment to introduce yourself and tell the listeners a little bit about who you are and your background?
Okay, so just like you've said, I'm an entrepreneur, and alongside my husband, we run a group of small companies in the UK and also in Africa. And those companies, they cover a range of industrial areas. So for instance, both our backgrounds are law. So one of the things that we have is a commercial law firm in London. We also have an HR consultancy. We have a legal magazine called Law Digest. Is it okay to show it? We have a legal magazine called Law Digest. And Law Digest is the premier magazine for African lawyers globally. And on the back of that, we hold an annual conference, legal conference in Africa every year, usually on asset recovery and international litigation. We also do awards for African lawyers who are contributing to the growth of their specific economies and the development of the legal field in Africa. We also have an HR consultancy, a company that deals with high net worth foreigners who don't live in the UK, but need a presence in the UK because they're doing business with the West. And so we do things like we help them register the company, we do their accounts, we do their tax, we provide meeting room space for them if they're in town, they want to see clients, all those kind of things. And then, like you said, my speaking and training company, which is my personal brand, that's my real baby, which is the Bebe Clement brand, and a couple of other things. So that's mainly what we do. I'm also a leader. I've been in leadership for the last 30 years. I'm a woman of faith, so I've been in leadership in the faith movement, the Christian movement for many, many years. But I'm a leader in different areas as well, business as well, community level, everything. So yes.
So it sounds like you're quite a busy individual. Would that be fair enough to draw that conclusion?
Yes.
Awesome. So you've got quite a few things happening, and we'll start unpacking what that might look like as we have this discussion moving forward. But would you be willing to just share some of the personal challenges you've faced as a Black woman in getting to the level of success that you've achieved?
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about when I was an employee. I remember the last paid job that I did. I was an employment lawyer for a trade union. And there was a belief within this trade union that Black people generally, and so you can imagine that's a double whammy if you're a woman, on my level only got there as a matter of tokenism. In other words, well, we have to have at least one Black person, so we might as well choose her. So I was determined at the time. I know this program is very is very solution oriented. So I was determined at the time to disabuse my colleagues of that impression. My boss, who had interviewed me, had told me that out of eight candidates, I definitely interviewed the best. So I was determined to let them know that I was not a token. I got the job because I was the best candidate, and I knew what I was doing. So I formulated a plan. And I ensured that anytime we had like a strategic meeting when all the bigwigs were there, I was going to stand up and say something. Most of my colleagues never said a word during these meetings, but I was determined to ensure that they heard my voice and that they understood that I was intelligent and I had something to say and I had something to bring to the table. So yes, I mean, those kind of silent biases that are no less potent for their silence, you come across all the time. So yes, you do have to fight. But I think the important thing is that you speak up. You don't just accept that this is the way things have been and are always going to be. You have to speak up and make your presence felt.
Okay. So you started off by saying a double whammy there. I'm assuming that you was alluding to the fact that not only was there racism to deal with, but also sexism. Would that be a fair assumption?
Yes.
Okay.
Black women are fighting a double battle because, as you well know, the whole gender differentiation is a battle on its own. Women in the workplace or in the marketplace, that's a battle on its own. But to then have to fight that battle as well as the fact that I'm a Black woman, that's a double battle. So yes, you're fighting on all fronts.
It's interesting. I'm grateful that you shared that. And then I'm also going to share something here. As a Black male, I think sometimes we might be so caught up in our own challenges, we might not recognize the fact that Black women might have a dual challenge that they're facing. And also sometimes, I guess, in the workplace, and you might be able to speak to this, and once again, this might be my own cognitive biases. Sometimes it feels from a Black male perspective that actually maybe Black women might be able to be more acceptable in the corporate employee world, so therefore they might be able to move up the strata, the ladder, easier than Black males. Is that true, or is that just a myth that we've bought into, or what's your experience around that?
I actually think you're right. I think, sadly, the Black male is the ultimate bogeyman, really. But that does not diminish our struggle as well.
Of course.
It doesn't diminish our struggle. But I agree with you. I think it's even harder for Black males.
Awesome. Okay. So I guess then since this conversation, one of the things about this show is the conversation just flows, then what could both the male and female do from that Black perspective, understanding that there's obstacles and challenges in place, whether in the workplace or from a business aspect, that could create the outcome which is of benefit to all of us?
Okay. From an entrepreneurial standpoint, I think that for as long as we as a people are dependent upon another people for our bread and butter, we're not going to make much progress. So I am a strong believer that we must have our own businesses. So we can send our children to schools that belong to another community. That's fair enough. But they go learn what they need to learn and they come back to our community and they build our community. Now they can only do that if we're able to provide a space for them to work or to have jobs. And there are very, very few people in the Black community creating jobs. So the first thing we have to do is we've got to come away from the mindset of being a job seeker and start being a job creator. That's what we've got to do, and start making room for each other. Because as long as we continue to be dependent on somebody else for our bread and butter, we're not going to make any progress. Also in the workplace, I think that Black people as a whole tend to hide too much. We tend to hide. We just want to go do our 9 to 5. We don't want any trouble. We don't want any stress. We just want to come home and watch our little Netflix or something like that. We don't want to get involved. That doesn't work. So for instance, when you're looking at things like promotion, the decision to promote most people is not made in the interview room. The decision to promote most people is made down the pub, which most Black people don't go to. So if you are gonna be in the workplace, be in the workplace. Don't say you don't want to get involved in the politics. It's unavoidable. It's unavoidable. Now, if it is the culture, and this is another thing that we have a problem with, too many of us are stuck in embeddedness. And embeddedness is where we are dependent upon our own people group. We find it difficult to go beyond our own people group, which a lot of Black people do. So if the culture of the place is on Friday night, we all go down to the pub, go down to the pub. You don't have to drink. You can order a Coke if that is your problem. You don't have to drink like everybody else is drinking. Order a Coke. But presence is very, very important in the workplace. Who are you? I mean, let's even forget the issue of race. If you are in a position of power in the workplace and you have to choose between people to who you're going to promote, who are you going to promote? You're going to promote somebody that you know a bit about, you hang out together, you've discovered that you have certain things in common. That's who you're going to promote. It's a subliminal thing. It's a mindset thing. You are not going to promote the person who you barely know, you never see, is antisocial, and seems to have a chip on their shoulder all the time. You're not going to promote that kind of person, even if they're the best person for the job. Okay, so that's the way I see it.
No, I mean, I think that's fair enough. And I think you shared something there which I can relate to, which I'd like to share with some of my listeners. So as you might know, I spend a lot of time working in the corporate world, working with CTOs and senior executives. And I remember back in 2010 when I started on this kind of trajectory, and working in those environments and feeling very intimidated, being the only Black male, sometimes the only Black person there. Yeah. And I used to also play that kind of, okay, let me just be here, but actually not speak or not be noticed because I don't want to ruffle anything. But I remember when that moment changed for me, and that's when I had the birth of my first son. He's 10 now. And I remember when I held him and he put his little hand around my finger, and it hit me very clearly at that moment in time that, oh my gosh, I've got a dependent, somebody who's depending on me. So I cannot be going into the organization and playing shy, playing it small just to make other people comfortable. And I think that was the transition point. And as you know, I've got 3 boys, so each one of them did the same thing for me. And each from that point, it just fired me up that, you know what, I've got, all that really matters is my children. So you know what, it doesn't matter what they think of me. And I've managed to build my career in that sense, whereby I actually just speak out, be it, and be comfortable being the only Black person there. Okay, so I hear that. But okay, so for some people, starting a business might seem like a really big challenge, and they may not necessarily have the mindset. How could they also support the Black economy? So we've got businesses, we're talking about now, how do we actually increase the amount of times that money flows through the Black communities? And what I'm hearing from you, you've got a number of international businesses which are set up, which are also geared towards that, but at a more global level. How do people who may say, okay, well, I can't go into business, what are some practical things that you think that they could start doing which could actually support the overall agenda, because it benefits us all, right?
Well, the first thing I think I'd say is a realization has got to come that the marketplace has changed and is changing even more so now because of COVID. The concept of the job for life, that's gone. That is gone. And we have got to get with the program. Now, I agree with you that not everybody has entrepreneurial skills, but everybody can develop different income streams. It doesn't have to be a business. So there are other ways in which you can grow the Black economy without necessarily starting a business. You can invest. On my show today, I have a radio show called Bebe Means Business, where we talk about entrepreneurship and business and wealth creation. On my show today, I had 2 guests who have been very successful, 2 Black guests who have been very successful in the property development market. So that is one area that you could go into, and you don't necessarily need a lot of money to do that. And there are people who are willing to show you what to do within the Black community. You can invest in shares, stocks, you can learn to be a trader. There are so many things that you can do. You can invest in other Black businesses that you don't necessarily have to run, but particularly amongst these young people. I mean, these young people are in a world that people of my age don't even understand. We don't understand it anymore. So look for young people who are doing some amazing things. Look for young people who are doing something and invest in them. Invest in them, because they're not just the future, they're the now. Because everything is moving so quickly, they are the now. So invest in them. There's loads of things that you can do. The knowledge that you have, the knowledge that you have, begin to teach people. So if you have knowledge, I don't know, let's say you have knowledge in how to marketing, do a free webinar, teach other Black people about marketing. That in itself will have a roll-on effect and help, you know, the Black economy. You can also make a commitment to buying Black. And this is where I think that, you know, your program is so vital. Buying Black. We have got to keep the money within our economy. We've got to learn from our brothers. We've got to learn from the Jews. The Jews do not let their money go out of their community if they can help it. The average Black person doesn't have that awareness. We don't have that consciousness. And with all due respect, I understand it. So I'm not slagging people who don't have that awareness of, I'm not slagging them off. But oftentimes, the customer service, the way we present our businesses is oftentimes very shoddy and very shabby. And so you don't want to invest in a Black business. So we have got to change our game. If we're serious about keeping the money within our economy, then we have got to up our game in the way in which we present our goods and our services. Better customer service, better presentation. Our shops have got to look nicer. Those kinds of things. Our customer service has got to improve. Our integrity level has got to get off the floor. Because again, these are some of the reasons why we're not investing in each other, because we lack integrity. So all these things have to be addressed if we're serious about growing the Black economy.
Sure. So I totally agree with some of those statements, but I guess I'd also expand on that. But I think there are many instances of many businesses and Black people who demonstrate lots of integrity, yourself included. There are lots of instances of Black people who offer great customer service. And also, I'd also say that right now, since we're in the fourth industrial revolution, whereby actually everything is becoming digitalized, should those be key factors, or is it not just a case that we now have the opportunity to take advantage of readily available, very cost-effective technologies to be able to use that to build businesses, make our businesses more visible, and make them more accessible to anybody, anywhere, at any time?
Definitely. I couldn't have said it better. Now we have access to audiences that we would never have had in previous years. Now we can walk in corridors that we couldn't have walked in even maybe a year ago. So yes, definitely. And because of the whole, again, the whole Black Lives Matter movement, I think we should not miss a trick. We shouldn't miss an opportunity. We don't know how long we're going to have the ear of the powers that be. So while we can ride this train, let's ride it as long as we can and make best use of it.
So then I would, and I like that point, and maybe this is just me coming out. So then my next question is, do we need anybody's ear really? We have over 30 billion annually that we have in terms of Black expenditure in the UK alone, right? So we have that money. Money controls votes, and politicians listen to people who have some form of economic basis. They're not morally drawn by, you know, sad stories. Okay, great, whatever. They want to see, what are you bringing to the table and how can I benefit from that? Isn't it surely a case of that really what we've got to do is follow some of the things that you suggested, some of the things that we're discussing here to actually build ourselves up, to actually we become a force who cannot be denied access to the table?
Yeah, I think for that to happen, for us to be taken seriously as an economic force, we have got to start collaborating. There's got to be some joined up thinking, because what is happening in the UK is everybody is doing their own little thing in their own little corner of the world, and we're doing it to death, literally to death. If we're going to become a force that matters, we are going to have to collaborate. And I agree with you, of course, not everybody is fraudulent, not everybody lacks integrity, and there are some businesses that are offering excellent customer service. You're going to find them. Find them and join forces with them, and we begin to stand up as one people. One of the gripes that I have, and I can say this because I'm a church leader, I'm a faith group leader, and I have been for many years. And one of the things that I do is I go into churches and I do wealth creation seminars and stuff like that. One of the things that I feel we have, I don't want to use the word failed, but we could do better, is our faith leaders need to be more strategic, because they are in an amazing position of power and influence with the Black community. And so I think, like, faith groups like churches and stuff like that, if the leaders were a bit more strategic in their thinking, for instance, one of the things that I propose that every church should have a business group. Every church should have a business group. And then the people begin to come together in a strategic way. There's a particular church denomination that I can think of, I won't mention the name, but I know, I mean, the number of members is phenomenal. And numbers, like you said, they speak. If they went to a bank or a financial institution and said, okay, you know what, we can guarantee you that we're going to ask 10,000 of our members to move their mortgage to your bank, but this is how much interest we want to pay, and we're not paying a penny more. Definitely, they would do that, because the average, I understand that the average, over 70% of the average UK bank account holder has £100 or less in their bank account. What are they going to do with that? So if you can present for them, even if it's 5,000 people to move their mortgages to a bank, man, come on. That financial institution is good to do business. They're good to go. So we have to be a bit more strategic in our thinking and begin to come together, begin to work together. And I'm beginning to see that. So I'm happy. I'm happy that it's happening, but it has to move a lot faster. It has to move a lot faster. And I think we'll make a lot more progress that way.
Okay, great. You spoke about faith leaders, you spoke about leaders potentially being able to marshal the communities towards economic end goals. And I really like that suggestion. Of course, that makes so much sense. Bring together financial power and use it to negotiate with the large institutions and get things that favor us individually, favor us as communities, but also individually as well. That is an awesome thing, and it sounds like it's very straightforward. One of the things that I was speaking about with Paul Lawrence last week was about leadership, and maybe more accurately, there of visible leadership in the Black communities in the UK. So I know that you're an expert and you have a lot of background in leadership, but also working with corporate global organizations to help them to understand leadership. So one of my first questions to you would be, are leaders born or made?
Well, I think that nearly everybody is born with characteristics that lend themselves to leadership. But I think that leaders are molded. Leaders that are worth their salt are molded from those characteristics. And there's a saying that good steel comes from a hot fire. If you are going to be a leader that people are going to look up to and respect and indeed want to follow and leave a legacy, and your life is going to speak to generations to come, you will have to be molded. And molding is not done in the public stage. Molding is done behind the scenes. Molding is a gut-wrenching, ongoing, ego-swallowing siege upon your character. But in the end, when the chaff is sifted from the wheat, what comes out is literally gold. But we have to have that process, because if you don't have that process, you then have leaders who are egotistical, who are sociopathic, who abuse the people that follow them, who are arrogant. You can tell those kind of leaders have not gone through the molding. So yes, I believe that leaders can be born, but even those who have those extra characteristics of lending themselves to leadership have to be molded.
Yes, I love the way you put that. And the whole molding process, when you're speaking about that, it reminded me of T.D. Jakes' great book, Crushing.
Yes,
I read that book. It's a very, very, very powerful book. But also just reminded me that diamonds are made under pressure, right? So what I'm hearing there is that in order for us to get leadership or good leaders, they're going to be prepared to go through the crushing and the wrenching before that they can actually mold themselves into it. But on that, following on from that as well, what would you say are some of the key characteristics of good leaders?
Humility is one.
Okay.
A genuine love for people. A genuine love for people. I think leaders have to have a shepherd's heart. There's a reason why in the Bible Jesus is likened to a shepherd. I think leaders have to have a shepherd's heart. They genuinely want to take care of people. They want to see people do well. They're not thinking about them. They're thinking about the people that they serve. They must have a servant's heart, because leadership comes from servanthood. The bare bones of leadership is about influence. That's the bare bones. And if you're going to influence people, you want to influence them for the better. I know you can influence them for the worse, but you want to influence them for the better. So other characteristics that you must have is the ability to delegate. Too many leaders take on too much and they burn themselves out. So you must be able to delegate. You must be able to recognize your limitations. So surround yourself with people who are better than you, smarter than you, sharper than you, understand things better than you. Surround yourself with those kind of people because you need them. Other characteristics include collaborations, being able to identify other people's gifts and drawing it out of them and giving them an opportunity for that gift to grow. So again, it's not about you. It's not about you. John Maxwell says that good leaders they don't find followers. They raise other leaders. And I believe that. So your job is to immediately, whenever you're leading a group of people, to immediately begin to identify leadership characteristics in other people and nurture them and grow them and create an atmosphere for them to flourish as leaders. Also understanding that people fail, and letting them know that it's okay to fail. The important thing is that you learn from your failures and it doesn't become a lifestyle, but you learn from those failures. And I think one of the most important ones, particularly where Black people are concerned, is knowing when to leave the stage. I'm eternally grateful for Nelson Mandela, because unlike many other African leaders, he could have held on to that position for the rest of his life. Nobody else had earned it like he earned it. So he could have had good reason to hold on to that position. But he understood that he'd done what he played his role, and he left the stage when the applause was loudest. And that is something that I aspire to do. There is a time in which you have to say, I've done all that I can do. I've nurtured the next generation. You need to work yourself out of a job, like Miles Monroe used to say, work yourself out of a job. If you are in a position of leadership and you leave that role and everything collapses as a result of you leading, you're a bad leader. You're a bad leader, because part of your job is to ensure that whatever it is that you are leading can function without you. Those are some of the characteristics I think are important.
I think you've given some really good, interesting guidelines or some key characteristics of what we should be looking for in some of the key leaders that we need to raise up within our communities. So I guess, and here's an interesting thing. So like I said last week with the conversation with Paul, we started looking at leadership, or the lack thereof, in the Black community. And that got me thinking. And this week I was having some conversations with my brothers who, and we're just reflecting on our own lives and just who the key influencers in our lives growing up over the years, both here and in Nigeria. And the more and more I started to think about it, the more and more I started to think about my gran and my aunties and my mum and all the other stuff. Started realizing, actually, West Africa, Nigeria, West Africa in general is kind of a matriarch society, right? Even though the key positions are still held by men, but a lot of the raising and a lot of the work that goes into raising the society and the community is actually done by women who are entrepreneurs, who go out and have their own businesses to provide. Similarly, we see that in the Caribbean, and we also see that a lot in America. So then I guess my question would be, since we have lack of leadership, visible leadership in the Black communities in the UK, should we start looking towards our women to take on that natural mantle that they seem to have been holding for many, many years, even if it's been unrecognized?
I don't think it's something that should be left to the women. But the truth is, particularly in the Black community in the UK, with the very sad breakdown of the home, of family life, and separation and divorce, and the increase of that in the Black community, which is sky high at the moment, a lot of this job is left to women by default. But that's not to say that men cannot play their part. One of the issues that I think is a problem for me, having been in leadership in the last however many years, is we see leadership as somebody standing in the front, giving rules and laws and directions and instructions. And that isn't necessarily all leadership encompasses. I'll give examples of leadership areas we need to start getting involved in, particularly for our children's sake, because at community level, our children hardly ever see successful Black people, hardly ever. When you talk to the average Black kid in the UK about who they see as being successful, you hear things like Beyonce, they name some rapper, that kind of thing. At least when we were growing up, even outside our own immediate families, you had the likes of, again, people like Nelson Mandela. You could think of people like Muhammad Ali, Martin Luther King. You had all these mentors that you'd never meet, but had an impact on your life and shaped and formed your values and where you wanted to go in life. All those ones, all that has gone. So we have got to start getting involved. Now, some of the areas in which we can get involved that I don't see Black people. One, let's look at the school system. Now, we often complain about the school system and the way the school system treats our children, which is not without merit. But how many Black people are school governors? When my kids were in primary school, I was the only female. When I started off, I was the only Black governor for a start. So what I did was, I thought, well, this is just not on, because that school was over 90% Black. So it wasn't because there weren't enough Black people. So what I did was I asked the school if I could write something in the newsletter. And I made a very impassioned plea to the Black parents to say, look, you need to get involved. People are making decisions regarding your children. Oftentimes, as a governor, I would come across cases of children who had been suspended, that kind of thing. And inevitably, 9 times out of 10, it was a Black kid. And the suspension would be longer than they would give a Caucasian kid. Sometimes it was an exclusion, which a Caucasian kid would not have got in the same circumstance, those kind of things. And Black parents would complain, but they would not get involved. So one of the ways in which Black people can get involved is starting from the root. Let's start with the schools. Become a school governor. Then when another thing that I used to do was, I don't do this anymore, but a few years ago, I used to go into schools. I ran an organization called Black Businesses. It was a networking group. And what we used to do was we used to go into schools and just speak about entrepreneurship and business and careers and stuff like that. And you will be amazed the number of Black kids who have never seen a successful Black person. So for them to actually have one come into their school, it was excellent for them. And I would watch the body language of the children when we start speaking, and their body language by the time we had finished. It's different. They just stand up a little taller, put their head back a little higher, you know, that kind of thing. It was different. Not only is it important for Black kids to see successful people, but it's important for white kids to see successful people, because as far as they're concerned, they don't even exist because they never see them. So on a community level, we need to start getting involved. Another of my gripes is that money, so this is not just about money or being successful, because money without power is pointless. Money only takes you so far. If we are not actively involved or walking in the corridors of power, and other people are still making decisions for our lives, irrespective of our money, we haven't come very far from slavery. So again, when I used to go to my local political meetings, again, when we started, I was the only Black person there. I'm happy to report that has changed in recent years, and a lot more Black people have got involved. And now in my borough, for instance, we have the last mayor was a Nigerian, the first Nigerian mayor in the history of the Royal Borough of Greenwich. And then we have Black councillors now and everything like that. But these kind of things, you have to be involved. Too many of us in the Black community in the UK are existing on the fringes of society. And as long as we do that, nature abhors a vacuum. If we don't do it, other people will do it. And other people who do it don't necessarily have our best interests at heart, or on a more less cynical level, they don't even know what we need. They don't know what we're about. So we need to tell our own story, and we can only do that if we're involved.
Sure, and I think you've raised some valid points there. And just to also expand on what I was saying before, one of the things that this is just my personal view, is I'm beginning, especially the more and more I have these conversations, to see that we seem to have a vacuum in terms of leadership from a strategic point of view. Now, no leader should be required to do it on their own. It should be all of us.
Yes.
It's quite clear, because we was talking about boycotting last week, the reparations movement. You also mentioned there's lots of people doing great stuff in pockets, but nobody is no joined upness. Even your suggestion around how we could actually marshal just one church, but imagine you get that all flowing and all connected, and all the churches come together, not to mention all other faiths and all other things, because people are willing to do that, or making it visible and helping people understand how they can become governors, how they can get involved in the school systems, just from where we are. And that's the kind of strategic leadership that I think it's beginning to feel that we really do need that. Somewhere, someone who can help to drive and marshal some of those things, so we're not doing them just ad hocly and having no impact. I think that would be very very good. Yeah. And so also, I mean, it's great to hear that in regards to the schools and how people could get in there. Also, just as we start to wrap up right now, previously you mentioned another great thing when you were talking about investing in business. Where would people actually go? Do we have a platform? Is that something that we can now throw out to the listeners and say, hey, we need a platform whereby people can come from the community and invest in other Black businesses? Do you know anything like that? Does it exist?
I have an online on Facebook. I have a networking group called Black Businesses. So if you want to go there, and this has existed way before the whole Black Lives Matter movement started. We've had this for years. So we have about 2,000, just over 2,000 members. And now we have other people groups who want to get in there. So so yes, and it's not just me. There are loads of other networking groups that you can get involved in. But speak to people. Just speak to people. They will connect you. They will connect you with people that you need to be connected with. Yes.
But I'm also wondering, since we're talking about being in a digital age, is there not, and I'm throwing these ideas out there, and hopefully somebody might run with it if they see that it's a viable option, is there not even an argument that actually we need a platform which is a bit like Kickstarter, whereby people can go and say, hey, here's my business, and other investors, Black people, can come and invest in those businesses, but it's safeguarded so everybody knows that the money goes here and it's all processes, rather than that individual thing. Bearing in mind, like you said before, one of the issues might be trust. If I don't know Jack, who's about to start a new business, I might not want to give him the money, but I might want to invest in a secure platform which I know is going to safeguard it and make sure the money gets there. So
one of the things that you can do is look for people that you know have integrity, have a good reputation and have integrity, and ask them to connect you. For instance, I had a lady on today, Bimbo Osagi, and she's done very well in the whole property development space. And she has, as a result, she started a group, an investment club, a property development investment club, where members contribute a certain amount of money. So they spread the risk. So if you were going to go into property development, you might not have 40, 50,000, but she has a club. And so people will contribute maybe 10,000, 5,000. They'll buy property, do it up, and then sell it. So those kind of groups, they do exist. Another thing that I do is I help, I have access to quite a good group of investors, business investors. So I help people who have good business ideas, and I connect them. And this whole COVID thing has been excellent for that, because now rather than have a physical face-to-face meeting, we can do all this online. So I've done this twice within the last, I think, month or so. There was a gentleman in South Africa who wanted an investment for a business idea that he had. We were able to help him. There's a guy in Nigeria who was involved in after sales maintenance for electric products. We were able to help him, and they don't even live here. So we were able to help them. So how much more the Black community within the UK? So there are groups, you just need to ask. Sure. I mean, a platform like this is fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. So awesome. The kind of people that will come on this program, they are well connected. You just need to ask, and people will connect you to who those you need to meet.
Yeah, so really, once again, I really appreciate that. And it's great to hear about the fact that you've actually got an existing platform and you're already connecting that. And I think, from my perspective, it feels like a lot of the times, There's lots of great stuff that's happening in our communities, but for whatever reason, it's not visible, not aware of it. What you just suggested in regards to your friends group, who's actually they're spreading and splitting the risk to ensure that, you know, more people can get involved. Those all things make sense. So I guess one of the things that we'll be discussing over the next few weeks and looking at is how do we actually make a lot of this more visible? How do we create easy access points where people can reach you, reach your network, vice versa, so that we can actually really start pulling all of this together. Okay, so just before we start wrapping up, we've just had a few comments from Facebook Live, which have been made. So one from Ron Daniel here, which says churches could form investment clubs and pool their resources and share risk, which is kind of along the lines of what you were just talking about in regards to the property side club. Also, it's been noted that it's an excellent point that there's lack of black role models who are not celebrities, which once again also then suggests to us that as a community, we've got to start thinking about media ownership. Because as we know, we exist, but we're not being shown. So therefore, the image that's created are all the negative stuff. So we won't go into the whole family land and all that other bits and pieces right now. But surely we have the money, we have the knowledge, the expertise to be able to start owning media so we can start telling our own stories, right?
Yes, very much so, yes.
The idea regarding the church is ensure that it's a good and godly to save money. Also, you know, utilizing what you said in regards to that, i.e. creating business schools tied to the churches, which enable us to be able to not only start encouraging entrepreneurship in our own communities, also getting that mindset going of circulating our money within the community. But like you said, amassing our buying power and being able to go to institutions to say, okay, here's the deal that we need. And here's the number of customers that we're going to bring to the table. We're hoping that on the back end of this, we'll see something else like this popping up. And then there's also a point made there in regards to learning from the Jewish community about how we keep our money circulating. And finally, I do believe that there was a comment in the group here, which was in the chat here, which is made. Totally agree that the last comment, everyone has to get involved. So we're coming to the end of the show. I'd like to keep it short and sweet, and I think you've given lots of great ideas for people to start thinking about. In closing, first question is, how can people connect with you, reach out to you, join your network, or get hold of you?
Okay. All right. Just before I say that, can I do a shameless plug if you don't mind?
Yes, do it.
Okay. I'm also the author of this book, which is How to Go from Employee to Entrepreneur, which you could get on Amazon for $12.99. But to our viewers and listeners today, I will do it for £10 if you want a copy of that. It will help you in transitioning from employment to entrepreneurship and avoiding all the mistakes that we often often befall us. So that will be £10 today if you want that. So just let them know and they can purchase that. But you can connect with me on Instagram. It's BB, that's BEBE _Clement, or Twitter. My Twitter handle is @BB Clement. And my website is www.bbclement.com. So by all means, please connect with me. I often have things to share that will help you on your life's journey, and particularly in the area of business and entrepreneurship.
Awesome. And oh yeah, sorry, before I wrap up, there's one question I have to ask you, because you said you got some free stuff and other bits and pieces. I was looking shamelessly, I was looking through your website, and I noticed that as part of your corporate training, you have a course which is how to be successful from the boardroom to the bedroom. Now, here's the thing about it. You know, I do a lot of work in the boardroom, right? So I have to work with CTOs and stuff in the boardroom. So yeah, just share a few tips and
well, I'm not going to share tips, but I'll just tell you how that came about. What it was, I was asked to speak to a group of high net worth, highly placed women a few years ago. And I must admit, I was quite intimidated because, we were talking about bank directors and stuff like that. They were quite highly placed. So they hired this really nice restaurant, fine dining, and they invited me to come and speak. And I just thought, what can I say to these women? Most of them are probably doing better than me. So I didn't know what to say to them. So what I did was I just spoke about nuggets from my journey, things that I've learned from life along the way. Now, at the end of this meeting, something very strange happened. a lot of them were very quiet, and I'm not used to that kind of reaction. I'm used to people, you know, clapping and all that when I teach people. But a lot of them were very quiet, so I thought maybe I'd said something wrong. But afterwards, a lot of them came to meet me privately, and nearly everybody in that room called me within the following week. And it came to light that even though they were seemingly successful, from those of us who are on the outside looking in, they were highly placed, you know, had nice houses and all the trappings, but their private lives were in a mess. Some of them had relationship problems, some had some, you know, some were depressed, all kinds of things were going on behind the scenes. So I thought, oh my gosh, you would never know to look at this person that, you know, they're a mess. So it's important that we're successful in every area of our lives, not just in our work life. It's important. There's no point in living in a mansion and, you know, you're crying yourself to sleep every night. That doesn't work. So I wrote a program, a strategic life planning program that would help people like that to bring some kind of stability and order and peace in their private lives, which of course then, you know, galvanizes their business life. So that's what that's about. So I'm not giving tips out today.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, yeah, I think, but that was very good what you shared there. But I think that's key, because I think that touches on a very fundamental issue that many of us are struggling, which is, how do you find that balance, the work-life balance, right? You may be driven, trying to be successful, overcoming challenges, which are all great, but it's also recognizing that actually to get there at the sacrifice of everything else makes no sense. Even though it doesn't necessarily make sense to just sit there and do nothing, is how do we find that right balance? So I appreciate that. Okay, so just in closing, so we've been speaking about, and you've shared lots of great ideas and suggestions, which I really appreciate. In closing, what 3 practical tips would you give any of the listeners about how they could also do something to help move the dial in regards to strengthening the UK Black economy?
1, if you've got kids, start teaching them about finance as young as possible. As young as possible. One of the issues we have is we're financially illiterate in the main. So we need to start teaching our children about money. Even if it's something like, if you wash the plates, you will get 50p. That kind of thing. Let them begin to connect making money from hard work, things like that. Start investing in your children at a very young age. So open a bank account. Don't raid it. Be disciplined. Don't raid it. Let your children know that you're opening a bank account for them. Somebody said, if your child is going to go to university, you've had 18 years notice, so there should be no excuse. So those kind of things. Start preparing your kids financially. 2, buy real estate. There are very few things that you can get, you can invest in that yields the kind of returns that property does. So get involved in property investment in one way or the other. And don't be deterred. If you think, oh, I don't have any money, believe me, there are ways around these things. So speak to people who are involved in property development. Let them enlighten you and show you how this thing is done. Because you don't have to be very rich to get involved in property development. 3, begin to invest in different areas. Make your money work hard for you. Don't look for how you can work harder for your money. When we think about increasing our income, we think about, okay, let me go and add another shift to my workspace. No. That's not what rich people do. Rich people look for how they can make their money work hard for them, not how they can work hard for their money. So the money that you have, don't eat all of it. Don't spend all of it. Get at least 10% of your monthly salary should go towards an investment of some kind, at least 10%. And lastly, I would say, practice delayed gratification. Too many of us want to look successful rather than be successful. And by that, I mean, we don't understand delayed gratification. We want to drive the best car. We want to live in the big house. We know that between our spouse and ourselves, we're only bringing in 60,000, but we go and get a mortgage of a house that's 3 times our salary. How are you going to do that? How is that going to work? So learn to live within your means and practice delayed gratification and build wealth. Building wealth takes time. So give yourself some time. Don't look for the overnight success. Don't look for the get rich quick schemes. Take your time, work together, and build wealth.
So once again, I really appreciate what you've shared and the time you've taken out to share your many years of experience and leadership experience as well in helping to add and contribute and formulate this discussion. So I really, really appreciate that. So there you have it, guys. There's a number of ideas then. That's the thing about it. They're very practical, easy ideas. So it'd be great. This forum, circulate is really for the community. The intention is of the talk show is to start getting us thinking. And one of the great benefits I'm getting is, just from having two guests, it's also started opening up my mind to some other possibilities. There've been a number of ideas shared here of things which are quite practical. It just requires us to just marshal ourselves. Some people maybe step up and kind of take the leadership mantle to direct us, but there's lots of possibilities. I'm really, really loving that idea of actually how do we start marshalling the community from faith leaderships, whether it's in the Christian faith or other faiths, but similar places like that, whereby we can actually start marshalling our financial collective buying power and utilizing that to get better deals, which influence and will enable us to once again keep that money circulating and strengthen the Black economy. As you can see, this whole strengthening of the Black economy thing is multifaceted. It's going to come from many different areas, and each and every one of us has a role that we can play in this. So let's keep the discussions open, but let's also not become people just talk. Start putting some action behind this, because we can talk things to death, and it's great. We all know what the problem is. Okay, great, well done for that. But it's about time that we started creating solutions, because we have that potential. So once again, Bebe, I really appreciate what you've done, and for taking the time out and sharing that. And thank you to all the listeners as well. So just signing off, mind your own Black business, and we'll see you again at 8 p.m. next week, Tuesday, when we'll have another guest. So thank you and good night.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.